Welcome to Ian Cinema, your destination for endless entertainment and unforgettable movie moments. Discover exciting films, inspiring stories, and cinematic journeys across every genre. Whether you love action, drama, thrillers, or timeless favorites, there's always something waiting for you here. Sit back, enjoy the experience, and let Ian Cinema bring the magic of movies to your screen. R.I.P. is a 2026 American action thriller written and directed by Joe Carnahan, who developed the story alongside Michael McGraw. The film stars Matt Damon and Ben Affleck as detectives in the Miami-Dade Police Department's narcotics unit. The supporting cast includes Stephen Yeun, Tana Taylor, Sasha Cale, Catalina Sandino Moreno, Scott Adkins, and Kyle Chandler. Inspired by the true story of Miami-Dade Police Captain Chris Cascio, the film follows a team of officers whose loyalty is put to the ultimate test. During a raid on a hidden cash operation, they uncover a massive fortune in cartel money. As suspicion spreads among the officers, trust quickly unravels, with each member believing someone else may be planning to steal the cash. R.I.P. was released on Netflix on January 16, 2026, and received generally favorable reviews from critics. The film was produced by Artists Equity, which negotiated a groundbreaking agreement with Netflix. Under the deal, members of the production team receive performance-based bonuses if the film achieves strong viewership on the streaming platform. The story begins after Captain Jackie Velez of the Miami-Dade Police Department is murdered. Suspicion soon falls on her elite tactical narcotics team, TNT, as rumors circulate about a group of corrupt officers robbing drug houses. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Damon, receives a tip about a house in Hialeah and leads detectives J.D. Byrne, Numa Baptiste, and Lou Salazar to investigate. Before the raid, Mars deliberately tells each officer a different estimate of how much money they might find at the house. They are reluctantly allowed inside by Desi Molina, the granddaughter of the recently deceased homeowner. While searching the property, the team discovers an astonishing $20 million in cartel cash hidden in the attic. Realizing the enormous risks involved in reporting such a massive seizure, Dumas ignores standard police protocol. Instead of informing his superiors, he confiscates everyone's phones to prevent outside communication. After a tense encounter with two local Hialeah police officers, the detectives secure the house and begin counting the money on site, following standard evidence procedures, unknown to the others. However, Lou secretly keeps the burner phone. Desi reveals that she had been instructed to offer anyone who discovered the hidden cash a share of the money. When Dumas learns that she previously worked as a police informant, he becomes increasingly suspicious of her motives. As threatening phone calls begin warning the team to leave the house immediately, Byrne confronts Dumas, accusing him of lying about the original tip after refusing to reveal its source. Believing that Dumas may be planning to steal the money himself, Byrne contacts DEA agent Matt Enix, who suggests that the lieutenant could even be connected to Captain Velez's murder. As the tension escalates, Byrne investigates a nearby house on his own and realizes that the seemingly deserted neighborhood is actually under the control of the cartel. Meanwhile, Desi warns Lou that she overheard Dumas trying to persuade Baptiste and Salazar to help him steal the cash. Moments later, the power is cut, and the house comes under a devastating barrage of gunfire, leaving the officers trapped in a deadly fight for survival. Salazar is injured while Dumas and Rowe manage to drive away the gunman. Byrne arrives with a cartel lookout from the neighboring house, who immediately contacts his boss. He explains that the cartel was not responsible for attacking the detectives and is willing to walk away from the stolen money. However, he warns that Velez may have been killed by someone from her own team. Tensions rise as Byrne and Dumas turn against each other. During the struggle, Rowe loses his phone, and the house catches fire. When Nix and his crew arrive, they leave Baptiste and Salazar behind with Desi while the other detectives join Nix, placing the money bags inside the back of an armored vehicle. Dumas then reveals the truth. Velez had secretly sent him the tip before her death, intending to use the house as bait to lure the corrupt heist crew into revealing themselves. He had deliberately made everyone believe that he was the one planning to steal the money. After the mysterious callers revealed the amount of cash involved, Doomer shared the information with Rowe. From there, he realized that Rowe was working with a criminal group, which included Nix and several corrupt officers from the Halia department. Nix and his men were responsible for the threatening calls and the gunfire directed at the house, while Rowe was the one who started the fire. Doomer explains that he had revealed his plan to burn in the neighboring house, where Byrne secretly took Rowe's burner phone during the confrontation. Rowe uses the phone to confirm Nix's involvement, realizing they have been exposed. Nix opens fire. During the violent confrontation, driver Diorez is killed, while Rowe and Doomer are wounded. Nix admits that he and Rowe were responsible for ambushing Vils, but Byrne had already contacted his FBI agent brother Dell, leaving the entire crew trapped by law enforcement. Rowe attempts to escape but is eventually chased down and arrested by Doomer. Meanwhile, Nix leads Byrne into a dangerous car chase that ends with a crash. When Nix tries to reach for his weapon, Byrne shoots him. After secretly replacing the stolen cash with phone books collected by Desi's grandmother, the team returns the real money to authorities. In exchange for her cooperation, Desi receives 20% of the recovered money. Later, on the beach, Doomer and Byrne watch the sunrise in memory of Vils. The film was first announced in June 2024, with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck attached to star. It was written and directed by Joe Carnahan, who developed the story alongside Michael McGraw. Damon and Affleck also produced the movie through their production company, Artists Equity. Soon after the project was presented to potential buyers, Netflix acquired the distribution rights. The agreement between Artists Equity and Netflix gained attention because the streaming company agreed to provide a one-time bonus payment to the 1,200 people who worked on the film if it reached certain performance goals within its first 90 days. This marked a different approach from Netflix's traditional model of paying a single upfront fee. The film draws inspiration from the true story of Miami-Dade Police Captain Chris Cosiano. In 2016, Cosiano and his narcotics unit investigated and raided a home in Miami Lakes, where they discovered nearly $20 million hidden inside. However, the corrupt police officer's storyline in the film is fictional. Damon's character is based on Cosiano himself and includes a personal storyline involving the loss of his 10-year-old son, Jake, who died from cancer. The emotional aspect of the film was inspired by Cosiano's real-life son, Jake William Cosiano, who passed away from leukemia in 2021. After joining the project, Netflix requested several changes to the script. Damon explained that traditional action movies usually build toward 3 major action sequences, one in the first act, one in the second, and the biggest explosion-filled finale in the third act. However, Netflix wanted a major action scene within the first 5 minutes to immediately capture viewers' attention. They also suggested repeating important plot details through dialogue, recognizing that many viewers may be distracted while watching. In October 2024, Tana Taylor, Sasha Cale, and Matilda Copyrighster Carbonell, Catalina Sandino Moreno, and Kyle Chandler joined the cast. In November 2024, Scott Atkins and Lena Esco were also added. Principal photography began on October 3, 2024, in Los Angeles and was expected to conclude in December. Additional filming took place in New Jersey during November. Juan Miguel Asensio served as a cinematographer. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film received positive reviews from 77% of 159 critics, with an average rating of 6.5. The website's consensus states that the movie uses Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's long-standing chemistry to explore a friendship tested by greed, delivering a crime thriller that is confidently executed and consistently engaging. On Metacritic, the film earned a weighted score of 63 out of 100 based on 32 critics. indicating generally favorable reviews. Travis Andrews of The Washington Post gave the film 2.5 out of 4 stars, describing it as a solid genre thriller that will satisfy crime movie fans but may disappoint others because of familiar cliché copyright-esque and extended action sequences. On May 7, 2026, 2 Miami-Dade sheriff's deputies, Jonathan Santana and Jason Smith, filed a defamation lawsuit against Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. They claimed that their portrayal in the film suggested they were corrupt officers, damaging their reputations and causing significant personal and professional harm. An interview with WSVN, Santana stated, "When you rip something, you're stealing something. We never stole $1. They're basically asking, how many buckets of money did I steal?" In their defamation lawsuit, Santana and Smith argued that the film used too many real-life details from their story, damaging the reputation of the officers involved. Corrupt cops are nothing new in Hollywood. According to the movies and television shows produced by the industry, police officers abusing their authority for financial gain is a familiar storyline. In The Rip, the FBI begins to suspect corruption within the precinct after the murder of Miami Police Captain Jackie Valdez. Valdez was in charge of the Tactical Narcotics Team, a group of officers responsible for raiding homes connected to drug cartels and confiscating illegal cash. That particular assignment appears especially vulnerable to misconduct. After all, it would not be difficult for someone to misreport the amount of money recovered and secretly keep a portion for themselves. When greed takes control of a police officer, it is often only a matter of time before they or someone around them faces the consequences. The FBI launches an investigation to determine whether Valdez's death was simply a tragic incident or something more deliberate. Detective Sergeant J.D. Bird takes offense at the accusations. He trusts his team completely and knows everyone is struggling with the loss of Valdez. While it is true that Lieutenant Dane Doomer is next in line to take over her position, J.D. strongly believes Doomer earned the promotion and deserves the responsibility. J.D. does not deny that corruption exists within law enforcement. He only insists that it does not exist in his precinct. With the team cleared to continue their work, Doomer leads the officers on another operation targeting a suspected drug money location. Doomer tells J.D. that an anonymous tip claimed there was around $300,000 hidden inside the house. However, when they search the property, they discover something far more shocking: $20 million concealed in buckets behind an attic wall. With internal affairs and the FBI watching their every move, Doomer insists that they follow procedure and handle everything by the book. Despite the enormous amount of money in front of them, not a single dollar will disappear. Every bill must be counted and documented properly inside the house. Meanwhile, the cartel threatens their lives, demanding that they walk away from the money and leave. But as the situation unfolds, several things begin to feel suspicious. From the moment Doomer sees the cash, his behavior changes. He urges everyone to surrender their phones, claiming it is for security reasons. He also decides not to immediately report the discovery to his superiors. When J.D. asks to see the anonymous tip, Doomer claims he does not have it with him. Slowly, J.D. begins questioning whether corruption may actually exist within his own precinct. The discovery of $20 million creates a powerful temptation for the officers. Since authorities were only expecting $300,000, it would be easy for someone to make a few $1,000s disappear without anyone noticing. However, not every officer is willing to betray their oath for personal gain. Some refuse to take advantage of their position, proving that integrity still exists among those in law enforcement. That message becomes even stronger when one officer talks about her salary and the sacrifices she makes while risking her life during dangerous operations. Looking at the money they discovered, she explains that people are often told to leave financial struggles in God's hands. But, as she points out, God isn't going to make the mortgage, is he? The film also includes discussions about religious references, with God's name used in vain multiple times throughout the movie, including several instances connected with J.D. Jesus' name is also used in a similar way on several occasions. Netflix's The Rip delivers an action-packed mystery centered on a group of police officers who begin questioning each other's motives after discovering a massive amount of hidden cash. The film features several unexpected twists, along with a high-profile cast including Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Tana Taylor, Stephen Yeun, and a brief appearance by Nestor Carbonell. While The Rip contains violence, it is somewhat less intense than many viewers might expect. However, when characters are shot, the film does show noticeable blood and graphic moments. The biggest factor behind its mature rating is the heavy use of strong language. The movie reportedly contains more than 300 uses of the F-word throughout its 1 hour and 52-minute runtime, averaging roughly one use every few seconds. If variety is the spice of life, then The Rip's dialogue can sometimes feel repetitive and predictable, relying heavily on the same type of language throughout the film. Nearly 3 decades after childhood friends Matt Damon and Ben Affleck first collaborated as writers on Good Will Hunting, the two reunited for another major project. Their earlier film became a massive success, earning more than $225 million worldwide and establishing them as one of Hollywood's most recognized creative partnerships. Even more impressively, the two friends from Cambridge, Massachusetts, would go on to win an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. Shortly after, both Damon and Affleck were launched into full-fledged leading man status. Despite their individual achievements and successful careers, their friendship has remained strong throughout the years. The duo reunites on screen once again in Netflix's R.I.P., a pulse-pounding action thriller written and directed by Joe Carnahan. While Damon and Affleck take center stage as the film's leads, Carnahan surrounds them with an impressive supporting cast featuring Stephen Yeun, recent Golden Globe winner Tana Taylor, Catalina Santino Moreno, Sasha Cale, Nestor Carbonell, and the always reliable Kyle Chandler. R.I.P. delivers a gritty, street-level crime story set in Miami. The film opens with the brutal murder of Captain Jackie Valdez, played by Lena Esco, the head of the police department's tactical narcotics unit, as her close-knit team struggles to cope with her death. The FBI launches an internal investigation to determine whether the killing was carried out by someone within the department. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Dane Dumars, portrayed by Matt Damon, is promoted to lead the struggling unit. However, stepping into the role proves difficult as the division is falling apart and team morale is at an all-time low. After receiving a Crime Stoppers tip about a stash house connected to the Halia cartel, Dane gathers his frustrated and divided team of detectives. The group includes his longtime friend and veteran officer Detective Sergeant J.D. Byrne, played by Ben Affleck, along with Detective Mike Numa, Detective Numa Baptiste, and Detective Lola Salazar. The team arrives at the location, a quiet house sitting at the end of a peaceful cul-de-sac. With the setup complete, Carnahan slowly increases the tension and places the characters under growing pressure. At the door, they are greeted by a young woman named Desi, played by Sasha Cale, who insists the house belongs to her grandmother. However, once the detectives begin searching inside, they uncover a shocking truth. Hidden inside the attic walls are 15 buckets filled with cartel money. The team initially expects the seizure to contain somewhere between $150,000 and $300,000. Instead, they discover they were sitting on an estimated $20 million fortune. According to police procedure, they must count and secure the money at the scene, but a discovery of that size brings an entirely new level of danger. That threat becomes clear when the team receives a mysterious phone call warning them that they have 30 minutes to leave or face the consequences. Carnahan traps the detectives inside a pressure cooker situation as they race to decide their next move. But the real question remains, is the danger coming only from outside forces, or are there hidden motives within the team itself? As the external threat grows, the deeper conflict comes from the cracks forming between the detectives. Suspicion begins to spread, trust starts to disappear, and old loyalties are tested. The question becomes impossible to ignore: who is corrupt, and who can be trusted. Carnahan skillfully builds a mystery filled with betrayal, paranoia, and uncertainty. He plants clues throughout the story without revealing too much, constantly keeping the audience guessing. Just when viewers think they have uncovered the truth, the film takes another unexpected turn. Working alongside cinematographer Miguel Burr, Carnahan creates a dark, realistic visual style that gives Miami a raw and intense atmosphere. The sharp camera work not only enhances the suspense but also brings energy to the action sequences, making every confrontation feel grounded and immersive. R.I.P. stands as Joe Carnahan's strongest film since The Grey and serves as a powerful start to the year for Netflix. Inspired by true events, the film delivers a gripping crime thriller that holds your attention from the opening moments to the final credits. Although the constant use of profanity occasionally weakens the impact, the screenplay remains sharp and focused, providing the talented cast with strong material to explore. Of course, it helps that Damon and Affleck share such natural chemistry on screen. Their long-standing friendship translates into a believable and compelling partnership. That chemistry is one of the many reasons why this intense action thriller works so effectively. Today, we look at a film attempting to do something different within the streaming world, an experiment designed to bring residuals back into a system that has gradually removed them from the industry. While the business side of the project is fascinating, none of it matters unless the film itself delivers a meaningful and engaging experience. Fortunately, R.I.P. proves that it has much more than just an interesting concept. That means it is time to take a closer look and find out whether the film has real depth beneath its surface. To set the stage, the story begins with Captain Jackie Valdez, Lena Esco, of Miami's tactical narcotics team, also known as TNT, being brutally gunned down in a parking lot. Her murder sends shockwaves throughout the department, putting Lieutenant Dane Dumars, Matt Damon, and Detective Sergeant J.D. Byrne, Ben Affleck, under intense pressure as internal affairs and federal investigators begin examining everyone connected to the unit. With millions of dollars at stake, the possibility of corruption quickly becomes impossible to ignore. Every officer in the department is feeling the pressure, but now one of their own has been killed, and nobody seems to have the answers. When police discover a massive hidden cash stash, everyone's loyalty is pushed to the limit. What if internal affairs is right? What if someone inside the team is corrupt? For a movie focused on the darker side of law enforcement and the question of where the real corruption lies, the world needs to be established immediately. Opening with the shocking murder of a captain is an effective way to create that atmosphere. Add a full-scale investigation that places every character under suspicion, and the film creates a constant feeling of uncertainty. Someone is hiding something, but who is it? Who are they working with? And is there more than one player involved? The film allows the audience to sit with that uncertainty for a long time, building tension before the first major confrontation begins. The opening sequence is especially effective because the camera often lingers in places where you expect violence could erupt at any moment. It gives viewers time to understand the characters while also making them question every single person before everything starts falling apart. The R.I.P. is the kind of movie that depends heavily on its cast because the audience needs to care about these characters while still wondering which of them might be hiding something. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck could have felt like a simple case of nostalgia casting, but their real-life history makes the dynamic work. You believe they share years of trust and friendship, which gives their relationship an authenticity that would be difficult to recreate. There is also a level of tension between them that works better than some similar pairings, such as in Wolves. Surrounding them is a strong supporting cast, with each actor adding something different and giving the story more emotional weight than it might have had otherwise. The chemistry between Tawny Taylor and Catalina Sandino Moreno is especially enjoyable, bringing much-needed energy and personality to the film. However, with someone like Scott Adkins involved, you cannot help but wish the movie gave him more opportunities to show what he can do. From a production standpoint, The R.I.P. is a well-crafted thriller. Much of the story takes place in a single location, which helps create the feeling that everything is unfolding over one intense night. The film balances realism with heightened drama, which is a difficult tone to maintain, but it manages to pull it off. A major part of that success comes from the way the main location is designed. The house where much of the story takes place feels lived in, like a real home filled with years of memories, old belongings, and history. But the movie also pushes reality slightly with moments of visual intensity, such as a serious conversation being interrupted by dirt falling from the ceiling. Every swing of a sledgehammer feels like it is bringing the characters closer to an inevitable explosion. There is less action than you might expect from a crime thriller like this, but the sequences that do happen are executed well. The fast-paced run and gun chase through the streets stands out as one of the film's strongest moments. The most challenging part of the RIP may be its narrative structure. The story is intentionally messy, placing the audience in a world where trust is almost impossible. From the very beginning, every character feels like they could be hiding something, and there are moments where it becomes difficult to know you can truly be believed. Even after the action begins, the film does not provide an obvious character to rely on. Whether you enjoy this approach will likely depend on your personal taste. Some viewers will appreciate the slow-building tension, while others may find the pacing frustrating. A large part of the movie revolves around endless possibilities. What if we kept the money? What if someone among us is a traitor? What if you cannot even trust your closest partner? These questions drive the entire story, and the film takes its time revealing the answers. You will either get completely invested in that uncertainty or feel like the movie leaves you behind. So, do we recommend the RIP? Yes, we do. It may not be a film that works for everyone. The slower pacing and the tense atmosphere established in the opening police station scenes might not appeal to every viewer, but the cast delivers strong performances. The mystery surrounding who is corrupt remains engaging, and the film does an excellent job of maintaining suspense until the end. One piece of advice: do not turn the movie into a drinking game every time someone says the RIP. Because your liver may not forgive you afterward. Have you watched the RIP? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the RIP, you might also want to check out Black Bag, another thriller that plays with the audience's perception of guilt, trust, and unreliable characters while being supported by a talented cast. Director Joe Carnahan, known for gritty crime films like Narc and Cop Shop, returns to familiar territory with the RIP. It is one of those rare Netflix original action thrillers that feels like it was made for the big screen, delivering a tense, character-driven experience built around suspicion, loyalty, and betrayal. BFFs Matt Damon and Ben Affleck lean into their age a bit more than usual to play world-weary Miami cops faced with the allure of corruption. Carnahan sets up his players, the backdrop of the dangerous world against which this will unfold, and then bounces them off on another in a way that keeps audiences guessing. Through it all, the Oscar winners for Good Will Hunting do stronger character work, especially Damon, elevating the rip even further. This is the kind of staple on basic cable channels like TNT that told men like Toa rail about not getting made anymore. They lead it up and be satisfied by this old-fashioned meal. The rip opens with a Miami cop named Jackie Linesco being murdered by masked thugs. It's clear she got too close to someone. Was it a criminal or one of her fellow cops? Carnahan cuts to interrogations of Jackie's partners on an elite Miami task force, one led by Lieutenant Danny Dummars, a perfectly grizzled Damon. These initial scenes set up the brains to the brawn of Detective via Sergeant J.D. Ben Affleck. The latter the kind of guy more likely to throw hands against the superior, questioning if he's a dirty, even if it's Scott Adkins. Although, like so much of Carnahan's a twisty, clever script, even the initial scenes are a bit of a fake-out. This is the kind of movie in which you're constantly questioning who's dirty, who's clean, or if everyone is somewhere along the spectrum. Gets a tip that there's a stash house for the cartel that's got money waiting to be seized by Miami PD. That's what Nanda and his team do. Go into illegal operations and rip the illegally gotten gains for the police force. as rumors circulate that corrupt cops have been keeping Ripsa for themselves. Dan and his task force head to a house at the end of a seemingly mundane cul-de-sac. The production design that makes an ordinary circle of houses feel threatening will be underrated. When they arrive and find just a young woman named Ceci, a very good Sasha with no idea why they'd even want to search her grandmother's house. Things quickly seem off, but the money-sniffing dog is going crazy. Maybe that's because there's $20 million in the attic. A stash that big the gang was expecting a low six figures like most trips sends the group into a tizzy. Detectives Micro, A. Stephen Yun, Numa Baptiste, Tiana Taylor, A. and Lo Salazar, Catalina Sandina Moreno debate with Dan and JD about what to do next. As Desi looks on, it's not just the temptation to split the money and head for the hills. It's the fact that whoever stashes that amount of money would do everything they can to protect it, right? The idea that the team has to do something, anything, quickly before the owner of the cash comes armed and ready to protect it gives the RIP a wonderful attention. It's not just the question of whether they steal the money, but if they'll even have time to make a choice before gunfire rains down on them. And will it be the cartel or the dirty cops who come to claim the deposit? The ticking clock of the RIP is effective enough, but Carnahan doesn't rest in all that. Also having a blast playing with the questions of loyalty within that tense dynamic. Couldn't be the one behind the corrupt trips? Did he get Jackie killed? What does D Agent Matt annex Kylie Chandler? Number. Why does Ro have a burner? Did Ceci really not know anything? Can greed and justice intersect? The constant flow of questions and suspicion gives the rip remarkable momentum. It's a long film, but you don't feel it at all for the large majority of the runtime. The final scenes of tying the things up could have been cut by about a half, even if the very last one is a beautiful grace note. It helps to have a great cast from top to bottom. Carnahan is an underrated director of performance when he wants to be, including one of Faraletta's best turns in Larkin Olnia of Liam Neeson's Best in the Grey. No one here lives up to those deeply underrated master classes, but it's a testament to Carnahan's direction that there's not a false note and the's a talented ensemble. Everyone works, especially Damon, while leans into his age in ways he hasn't much to date, selling how drama and exhaustion might impact a man tired of always being a hero. The rip goes on a little too long in its final scenes and jettison a few too many of its supporting characters along the way. Also the twists are revealed, as clever as they are. However, it's so much better than most streaming original action films that no one will mind. In the end, it actually got me hoping that Carnahan could just become an in-house Netflix original action guy. Maybe even teaching a few of the big budget hires how to do this kind of thing. Well, if we got a movie as airtight as the RIP every January, Netflix would be a better place. Although, maybe I'm just being greedy. Both the good guys and the body guys work for the Miami-Dade Police Department in the RIP, which reunite as a Good Will Hunting buds Ben Affleck and Matt Damon for a dark trust no one heist, a movie that's conspicuously better than most Netflix originals and frankly right in line with a couple of films the boys made for Warner Brothers earlier this century, namely The Departed and The Town. Like those upscale crime movies, the rip belongs on the big screen. The fact it can be seen that Y underscores warnings that the streamer isn't really interested in theatrical or whatever it might claim in order to acquire wearers. Colombian Cardinal area doing business in South Florida. They're hardly the worst of the worst. Teen and art director Joe Carnahan's latest authority-questioning thriller. Instead, the intrigue is almost entirely internal as dirty cops scheme to make off with more than $20 million in illicit cash if only they can figure out where it's hidden. LT Dane Dunbar's Damon has a pretty good idea, though the sheer scale of the haul catches him by surprise. Doda heavily fictionalized retelling of the department's biggest seizure. The reba opens with the waterfront execution of a respected captain, Jack Evils, Lennon Esco, by a pair of masked gunmen. Aroma there, it accelerates into cat and mouse territory as Dunbar's the officer she trusted most, leads his team to a nondescript house at the end of a sleepy suburban cul-de-sac, when the young Colombian woman, Sasha Ksdcesi, opens the door. Doomer feels fairly confident that they've come to the right place. Sure enough, the newly renovated attica has a hidden room where barrel upon a barrel of $100 bills are neatly stashed, per local police procedure. When Florida cops seize any quantity of cash, they're required to count the money on site. In this case, that makes Doomer and his team as sitting ducks for anyone else with the designs on their score. Carnahan's script introduces early the idea that Jackie was most likely killed by corrupt cops, which turns the entire scenario a team of 5 hold up at the end of a street where the cartel appears to control every house into a tense close-to-circle mystery. The rip clearly cost a lot of money, and yet almost half the film unfolds in this single location. The rundown home Desi inherited from her abuela, though it's still daylight out when Doomer's crew enters the house. Carnahan and Dpju and Miburas treated the film like they're making Heat 2, adopting the same sleek, satiny, almost monochromatic look. Michael Mann brought it to his modern-day crime classic and also matching the ultra-wide aspect ratio. The Florida sun is nowhere to be seen. Music, as gray skies make exteriors feel oppressive and dangerous. Composer Clinton Shorter's accelerated Bulgaria amplifies the tension even further. Things are even more underlit inside the house, and it's not long before real night falls, and everyone is moving under cloak of darkness, further obscured by a fine mist. The testosterone is palpably in this high-stakes poker game as thick beards mask the faces of nearly half the cast. That goes for Damon, Affleck and co-star Kyle Chandler at least. When the guns go off, they spark bright like welding torches while street lights aglow, piercing the gloom. Visuals that collectively reinforce the film's cinematic ambitions. Much has already been said about how the rip defies Netflix's prescribed rules for distracted viewership, where the plot must be restated multiple times for a divided attention audiences. But even those who give the rip their full attention may find it hard to explain all the twists and double crosses Carnahan crams into his gripping 2-hour thriller, which is presumably why Netflix saw fit to publish a two-time article entitled "The RIP's Ending, Explained. Who is the traitor and what happens to the money?" The primary suspects are Doomer and his belligerent partner Detective Sergeant J.D. Ben Affleck, as well as fellow officers Rowe, Stephen Yun, Salazar, Catalina Sandino Moreno, and Batista Oscar-nominated Tiana Taylor. Let's stop for a minute and take in that cast. It's only January and Netflix has already set the bar incredibly high when it comes to assembling the most impressive but still a surprising team imaginable. Normally a shrewd viewer can look at such a lineup and guess who the villains are going to be, since such roles typically attract strong actors. But this is a next-level ensemble, and it's not that easy. Between the sheer complexity of the plot, what's the deal with the cops who roll up in their cruiser who is shooting up the house? Why doesn't Doomer try to arrest any from the cartel? And the intricate why Carnahan assembles the puzzle. The rip is easily worth a second viewing. Having done so myself, I can attest that it's even more satisfying on closer inspection. Editor Kevin Hale is constantly cutting between the faces of Doomer's team, showing each of their reactions to unplanned setbacks, and once you know what everyone's motives are, the performances prove even more satisfying, as do a couple of corny shadows staged to keep us guessing. According to a conversation Carnahan sets in the garage, the cops in the rip make roughly $80,000 a year, risking their lives to recover money earned from selling drugs and other serious crimes. At one point, Baptiste holds up a modest stack of bills and wonders aloud how just that amount might change her life. Imagine what $20 million could do. The rip was made for nearly 5 times that sum, and though it's hard to make sense of Netflix accounting, the money clearly went to good use unless you count a lousy epilogue set on Florida's fakest-looking beach. Surely they could have found a few more bucks. There's something quietly magnetic about watching two old friends meet again on a screen, especially when those friends are Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. And that's the emotional fuel that the Reaper burns through for much of its runtime. Directed by Joe Carnahan. Music, Thea Gray, 18 Team. This is a Crimea thriller steeped in moral ambiguity and a rattling paranoia, one that leans so much on its central performances as it does on its procedural mechanics. At its core, the RIP unfolds around a specialized faction of Miami cops known as TNT, Tactical Narcotics Team. They are a unit whose daily grind involves retrieving cartel cash from the field and counting it on site before it can ever see an evidence locker. On paper, it's a neat twist on the typical detective setup, but Carnahan and his cast turn those clever ideas into something self-aware and troubling, especially once we learn that a massive RIP, that is a huge cash seizure, is on the horizon and someone is clearly leaking information. To whom and for what purposes is the question. From this point on, the film becomes less about catching criminals than catching shadows of betrayal within the team itself. Matt Damon plays LT Dummars, the unit's steady heartbeat. He's calm, measured, the kind of cop who prides himself on the procedure and discipline. Damon gives Dummer an ominous layer of tension, a man who wants to do things the right way, even when the world around him makes it increasingly unclear what right even means anymore. His character has gone through a personal upheaval. Is it enough for him to consider pocketing a chunk of cartel coin? Damon does an admirable job forcing us to debate these throughout the film. Opposite him, Ben Affleck delivers one of the most compelling performances of his career as Detective J.D. Byrne, a wiry unpredictably force of nature whose presence almost upends the film's gravitational center. Affleck's Byrne is the character you can't take your eyes off, restless, jittery, and operating just on the edge of madness. It's an unusual turn for Affleck, one that feels all his own. And he dominates scenes in a way that both surprises and crucially feels earned. This Affleck-Damon pairing is more than a reunion. It's a reminder of why theater art has lasted across decades of collaboration. There's real history in their banter and interaction, a live sense of familiarity that pays dividends in these scenes where trust is fraying fast and everyone looks a little too hard on everyone else. A lesser film might have leaned into the novelty of seeing them together again, but Carnahan's The Reaper uses that energy to underscore how tested friendships and moral compasses can unravel in high-stakes pressure. Supporting roles are solid if undercooked. Kyle Chandler brings a predictability and authority that grounded the story, while Stephen Yeun, Tiana Taylor, Sasha Kaye, Catalina Sandino Moreno, and Scott Adkins fill out the world with flashes of intensity and a connective tissue to the cartel subplot. They serve the narrative well, though it's clear the movie's trouble remains with the two leads. Carnahan's direction is energetic, the pacing often brisk, the tension palpable. The Reaper moves with confidence and urgency, though its action sequences occasionally feel too skittish for their own good. Also if determined not to linger long enough for the audience to catch its breath. But while those moments sometimes undercut the film's dramatic weight, they're balanced by the infectious intrigue of the story itself. Once you're drawn into this moral maze, you rarely want to look away. Where the RIP ultimately succeeds is in its blend of tangible procedural drama and something a little more existential. The feeling that in this world of dollars and deception, the real challenge isn't catching the bad guys, it's figuring out which version of good you are still willing to believe in. For a Netflix original, music, that is a refreshing philosophical undercurrent. It is not just pulse-pounding action or gritty crime storytelling. It is a movie that has something to say about loyalty, about trust, and about who we become when the line between a right and wrong stops looking all that different. In the end, The Rip is not perfect, but it is compelling. Between one of Hollywood's most enduring collaborations and a director who clearly delights in pushing his characters to the edge. It is a rare Netflix thriller that resonates long after the credits roll. The R.I.P. is an action thriller on Netflix. The movie is about a specialized unit of true detectives called to investigate what should be a routine bust. However, the team begins to turn on each other as they realize the bust is more than Thea bargained and that one of them might be dirty. Miami's tactical narcotics steamer TNT is still reeling from the loss of one of their own debt. Jackie feels also they face questions from the FBI about whether or not they had anything to do with her murder. There are rumors that crooked cops have been stealing money from drug cartel houses in Miami's the unit is under suspicion. Amid the FBI investigation, the TNT team is called to investigate a tip about a house that might contain illegal money called RIP. Once they get there, the team discovers that far more money is at stake than they were led to believe. The team members start turning on each other, questioning why the RIP hasn't been reported to their superior officers and accusing one another of trying to steal the money. As tensions rise and as secrets come to light, the TNT members must fight to survive the night and to figure out which one of them is dirty. The RIP is a very enjoyable mystery thriller with lots of action. The movie is full of twists and turns that will keep viewers guessing until the very end. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, a longtime Hollywood partners, have great chemistry together. Supporting cast members Steven Yeun, Tiana Taylor, and Sasha Calle help dial up the drama and excitement. The RIP takes the action film, a genre that will always be classic Americana, and gleefully overloads it with anti-heroes, leaving you to question who's good, who's bad, and whether that line between hero and villain even exists anymore. Especially in today's world where we are begging for heroes, actively seeking them out, and craving genuine conviction. We are, as Aaron Sorcina would say, so thirsty for it that we'll crawl through the desert toward Emergia and drink the sand. The story follows Matt Damon as Lieutenant Dane Dumars. Matt Damon, Music who leads a team in Miami's narcotics unit. Their division is being put under the microscope when the rumor makes the rounds of inside heist teams where cops play robbers and steal money from illegal drug stash houses across the city. While talking to the Major Nestor Carbonell, Dane's team is interviewed, including his hothead second-in-command, JD Ben Affleck. The team is under professional and personal stress, and after the film's opening scene, we learn why. A member of their team, Jackie Lenosco, is murdered in cold blood on Magic City's humid, rainy night, and they have no clue why. JD, who has a hush-hush relationship with Jackie, is masking his pain. New 801's Tiana Taylor and Lola Maria full of graces Catalina Sandy Noah Moreno are having trouble making ends meet. Mike Minutes Steven Yeun is constantly in his lieutenant's yearbout unpaid overtime. It also doesn't help that Maddie, Kyle Chandler, a local DI agent, is always flaunting the uncapped pay the feds allow, while his team works for free. Music, beyond a normal 9 to 5. That's the carrot the audience is given. So, here comes the stick. Nia gets a tip from Crime Stoppers that there's a couple of hundred in a downtown stash house. He gathers his troops and they charm their way into what he says is the Flash's Sasha K. home where they discover over 20 million and supervision in sight. The rip is from Joe Carnahan the Grey who rose to prominence with a 2002 Jason Patric and Ray Liotta crime classic Narc. It may have taken some years, but Carnahan has found his way back to what he does best. Telling crime stories through interesting lenses and making conventional plot devices feel new again. Do yourself a favor and book a double feature with us and his 2022 pulpy homage to 70s crime films, Copa Shop, an honorable mention on our esteemed editor-in-chief Davide Giannini's Best Films of 2021 list. For 1, Carnahan uses tension, tone, and pace as creative weapons. Now, yes, the rip is much more of a straight genre picture than he has made in a while. However, there is a velocity to the scenes that zip by in a way you can't quite put your finger on. Watching Ida back, Even moments where the FBI is interrogating Damon's Danes team carry an organic urgency that feels infectious. That's because his script rarely gives us away to exposition that overstays its welcome. Scenes with Damon and Affleck at each other's throats feel dangerous, fast, and unstable. While the third act comes together a bit too cleanly, the familiar crime cliches are played with a clever wink and nod to the audience, showing an awareness of plot holes the rest of us would normally question. Yes, seasoned cinephiles will likely spot the main villain a mile away. Yet, the tension and tone built through clever plotting will keep most genre fans on the edge of their seats for most of the film. There are a few details that drag down the picture, like communication with drug cartels, which I found laughable. In addition, when they reveal Jackie's killer in the third act, they do it in a flashback. The criminal takes off their mask and walks away as if there were no cameras on every street corner or in the parking lot filled with the cars. I mean, if Damon, Affleck, and Carnahan never watched an episode of Fat True Crime where CCTV solves more murders than Columbo, yes, the RIP is worth watching because it is a smart popcorn-style streaming film that takes a thoughtful approach to a standard story. The real-life story it is based on, the real-life Miami River cops scandal, ice bonkers and begging to be made into a feature. An excellent cast does lift the material, but the story, the devices, music, and the tension make the picture gripping enough to recommend, and to be thankful for cinematic heroes. Music since we lack so many at the moment. More than a gift to see Ben Affleck and Matt Damon reunited on screen. This is a genius stroke of casting for a writer, director Joe Carnahan's paranoia crime thriller. The rip that, well, rips. Serving as high-ranking Miami cops, their unit, which also consists of notable actors Gianna Taylor, Stephen Yeun, and Catalina Sandino Moreno, is mentally shaken up by the loss of Captain Jackie, Elena Esco, in the line of duty, with the film utilizing a cold open, a choice proven to be the right one, with not an ounce of superfluous material here in this tightly edited crowd-pleaser, placing each officer under questioning to ascertain whether or not there is the possibility this was an inside job at playing best friends also on screen. The recently promoted but personally adrift Lieutenant Dunbar's Damon and a nonsense hornet's nest shaker detective via Sergeant J.D. Ben Affleck trust Tony another implicitly and want justice. That is until a crime stopper comes in, prompting to bring his team onto a job after their shift that it technically does not qualify as over to me to search the hoarded home of Odessa Sasha K, who had inherited it following the death of her grandmother. Typically, these tips are intended to inform law enforcement teams of Safia houses withholding dirty drug money here, believed to belong to the Colombian cartel. As such, they bring along a dog who sniffs out cash rather than narcotics, which is nifty. If anything, the dog should be suspicious of one, who starts behaving weirdly the moment before telling his crew about the job, which increasingly grows erratic to the point where even JD has no clue whether or not he can still be trusted or if he is looking to pocket the exorbitant amount of cash hidden in the home that he is aware of and tries to hide from them while knowing more than leading on from the minute and begins informing his team of the details. He doesn't quite seem sure of what he is getting himself into and greatly underestimates just how much money is in the home. It is such a startling amount, crossing way over into the millions, that considering the recent loss of Jackie, it somewhat sends him into an anxiety-ridden spiral at one of his own could turn against him. He collects everyone's phones, asserts that he will not inform their superiors, and orders that the unmarked Kasha containers be counted. Meanwhile, other characters also begin behaving strangely. Then there are mysterious calls coming to the home threatening violence, with this entire cul-de-sac seemingly being abandoned with hovers around using porch lights to communicate in Morse code. Lights and shadows frequently come into play for some striking photography. That unique and unorthodox method of communication isn't the only intelligent aspect here, as the RIP is a smart and intense thriller that appears to have been designed in a lab to leverage that tight personal and Hollywood friendship. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon testing it and forcing the audience into an equally awkwardly suspenseful lane of picking a side while watching their characters' connection unravel and loyalties tested with an acronym tattooed across his hand translating to "Are we the good guys?" We are also made aware that his personal life is crumbling. One also wonders if he is instinctively occasionally staring at that to prevent him from falling to a corrupt side. Perhaps he is already there. Maybe someone else has something to hide. This isn't to say the Reaper is entirely unpredictable in what it is doing, but more that the information that is dispersed is done so in a skillful manner that when it comes time for all of it to come into play in a revelatory story context, there is a blistering and palpable sweaty tension. It would be a spoiler to say what pinpointing the reveals comes down to. But safe to say a conversation inside an armored vehicle where the good guys and the bad guys are made clear is arousing a sequence that is among the best seen as of Joe Carnahan's filmmaking career and more exciting than the more traditional action following it up. There are tidbits where it seems Carnahan is attempting to get at something about Pia until little overtime is rewarded in these law enforcement areas. And really one wishes that was expanded upon slightly. The mystery drama and white-knuckle thrills suffice. I've been looking forward to the rip ever since I heard that cast included Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Scott Adkins. The trailers made it look like it was going to be an intense ride, and with Joe, Taylor and Moreno are spot on in the sensational cast, which also features a nice turn from Nestor Carbonell, another fed on their tail. Producers Ari Affleck, Damon, Danny Bernfeld, and Luke and Damon. The film comes from Affleck and Damon's Artists Equity, which is designed for streaming movies and offers back-end profits to those who worked on the film in various capacities in front of and behind camera based on the number of views the movie gets. Just like Wilbur, the police dog in the RIP. I smell money. It would be easy to dismiss the rip as a January straight-to streaming action thriller if it did not come with this kind of star power. A Joey Carnahan cops and crime potboilery backed by Artists Equity and led by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck feels like he is something designed to make noise. Notice something quietly dropped on Netflix, and the movie mostly delivers what that pitch implies, sometimes better than you would expect. Damon plays Lieutenant Dane Dummars, who leads a Miami-Dade tactical narcotics team into a Halia stash house and finds a cartel cache that turns the night into a pressure cooker. The catch is not the money itself, it is what the money does to the room. Dummar does not call it in right away. He controls the information and the team starts looking at each other like he is strangers. Carnahan understands how to make a confined situation feel volatile, and the first stretch plays with relative procedural momentum. A lot of why it works is the casting. Music. Damon is good in a role that plays slightly against his recent run of competent, steady good guy parts. Dummars reads as smart and capable, but also potentially compromised, which keeps the tension alive even when you can feel the movie steering toward the familiar turns. Affleck is solid as the other half of the friendship dynamic, and the best scenes are the ones that let their history do the heavy lifting without over-explaining it. Stephen Yeun and Deanna Taylor are both welcome presents, and the ensemble texture helps the distrust land even when the script is being a little too blunt about where it is headed. The downside is that the Reaper still has that Netflix thriller sheen where the movie feels built to be compulsively watchable more than genuinely surprising. Carnahan keeps it moving and the set pieces have bite, but the plot mechanics can feel obvious and self-referential, like the movie is congratulating itself for twists you clock early when it leaves the initial location and opens up past some of the tight nasty energy leaks out. It is still a decent hang, but you can feel it settling into genre autopilot. I ended up liking the Reaper more than I expected to and less than I wanted to. It is better than the lot of recent action thriller comfort food, And it has enough atmosphere and mistrust to keep you locked in. It just never quite ever becomes the great Miami cop paranoia movie. It keeps teasing, solid, serviceable, occasionally tense, and a reminder that with this cast and the premise, there was a meaner, sharper version sitting right there. It's tough to be too critical about the R.I.P., a modest cop thriller that stars the lifelong buddies Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in their first movie together since they launched their own production, Artists Equity, with the release of Air nearly 3 years ago. After all, it's exactly the type of film that Damon and Affleck felt there was still a market for mid-budget, high-floor, low-ceiling dramas that aren't based in any existing IP or part of an expanding cinematic universe. You have heard of 4-quadrant movies? Well, the R.I.P. is a 1-quadrant movie. This is a film designed exclusively for folks who like watching aging male movie stars talk tough, shoot guns, and solve crimes. It's a movie that targets with a laser precision film brothers who have purchased both The Departed and The Tona in multiple formats. The R.I.P. ain't nearly as good as either of those classics. Look. Maybe I got just a little bit of film bro in me, too. Okay. But it's not the worst idea in the world to put out an unpretentious crime drama, one that feels like it could have been released anytime at a streaming marketplace. And if that's the kind of movie remaking music, it makes a lot of sense that you team up with director Joe Carnahan, Narc, Smokin' Aces, Thea Gray, one of our chief purveyors of gritty shoot first and ask questions later style action thrillers with Thea Rip, which bypasses theaters entirely for a release on Netflix. Carnahan has made a film that's just engaging enough to satisfy its single quadrant, but it also fails to elevate the formula in any way, resulting in a movie that's unlikely to serve as anything other than a footnote in the careers of its two leading men. In the R.I.P., Damon and Affleck play 2 Miami cops, Lt. Danny Dumars and Ed J.D. Byrne, who work on a strike force labeled the Tactical Narcotics Team that raids drug stash houses. When a member of their team frantically texts them a hot tip right before getting gunned down by a masked assailants, the squad finds themselves raiding a suspected drug dealer that has $20 million in cash hidden away in barrels behind a false wall in the attic. The only person in the house, a young woman named Ceci Sashikaya, claims she knows nothing about it. The 5-person strike force, which in addition to Damon and Affleck, is filled up by Steven Yeun, Catalina Sandy, Noah Moreno, and Tiana Taylor, is immediately overcome by fear and paranoia as they begin wondering both who might be coming for the money and which of their team members might decide to seize the loot for themselves. Dumars not wanting to phone in the fine to HQ doesn't exactly inspire confidence among the troops, and the shady local cops are patrolling the street out front. And then a threatening phone call comes in. You've got 30 minutes to get out of that house. From that point, the rips and all several different action movie tropes and scenarios. It's a siege movie. Wait, maybe it's a heist movie, as the plot dutifully untangles itself via series of twists and turns that too often feel mandated rather than inspired. As some lip service is paid to character depth, but really, both Damon and Affleck are just playing stock tough guy characters that likely didn't require much prep aside from growing a grizzled beard. That said, there's a reason these guys are still movie stars nearly 3 decades after Good Will Hunting, and there's admittedly some fun to be had in watching them step into roles that feel more grounded than the outsized big-screen characters they've often been tasked to play. The supporting cast is also worth paying attention to, as it's far more interesting than what we typically get from a January Netflix release. Yeun is always reliable, and this is Taylor's first film since he is starring in and winning a Golden Globe for one battle after another, which boosted her career last fall. Kylie Chandler is also around as a DA agent keeping tabs on the situation. And while Carnahan didn't have to cast a action star, Scott Adkins is a federal investigator who's looking into the team and just so happens to also be Byrne's brother, I'm certainly happy that he did. Don't expect any roundhousey kicks from Atkins, though. He's only in 2 scenes, and the rip doesn't feature much in the way of hand-to-hand combat. What it does have is gunfire, as the film's biggest action set pieces are all by-the-book shootouts that Carnahan shoots like a pro. The story itself is also standard issue, offering up the prerequisite number of double crosses, fake-outs, and plot explaining flashbacks until everyone's true motive is revealed and the surprise villain or villains can be held accountable. The RIP's closest cousin might honestly be the FX cop show The Shield, which was also about a highly specialized strikey team that wasn't exactly on the level and often found themselves stuck in a situation spiraling out of control. The Shield wasn't afraid to get dark, though. While the rip feels like Ida needs to play it safe enough to accommodate its movie star leads, Carnahan, who wrote the script and shares a story credit, musters a feeling of authenticity. I'm not a Miami cop, so it could be Fox authenticity as far as I know. But the characters in the rip do speak a certain way and carry themselves in a manner that feels true to the dingy, dangerous world it builds out. The story it's all in service of likely wouldn't support a 2+ hour film, but thankfully, the rip cuts to credits right at the hour and 45-minute mark. Just like that itself, this movie wants to get the job done without complication and to get out before it overstays its welcome. On that front, the rip is solid and ought to earn a mild recommendation, and I love the rip. I love that it's so dark and seedy. I love that it's another Matt Damon, Ben Affleck joint. I love that it's about crooked, shitty cops who backstab other crooked, shitty cops. I love that it's the second Netflix flick where Ben Affleck tears open the walls of a rundown house and finds millions in drug money. I love that it has Sasha K, who's done dirty by the superhero industrial complex of which co-star Affleck might relate. I love that nothing about its story makes sense, but in the moment the filmmaking has sucked up a viewer that you're going along with it at every step. I love the part where Matt Damon walks in from out of focus with an ambient music cue that declares in no ambiguous terms he's lost his marbles. I love that it has Scott Adkins, I love that he doesn't do a lick of fat kung fu. I love the cute dog. I love that this is a movie for adults. I love how Ben yells with the same ease of as breathing. I love the rip so much, is all I'm saying, but I hate it's getting dumped on Netflix in January. Music had the nerve. The Rip, if you didn't already know, is a new Netflix action thriller starring Hollywood's greatest bromance of Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. It's directed by Joe Carnahan, Ozzy work on Smokin' Aces, The A-Team, and The Grey means he's squarely in his wheelhouse. Affleck and Damon play Miami cops whose captain and Affleck's lover is killed in cold blood. Shortly after, they get an anonymous tip of the money stashed in a deceased person's home. As they count the score, Damon's anti-hero starts cooking up how he can run off with every dime, or at least that's what he wants you to think. There's twists and turns and truths that arise to the surface with shootouts and car chases first use. The RIP came to on Netflix on January 16 to little fanfare other than promo on podcasts like New Heights and Conan Needs a Friend. Beyond that, the rip is suffering the same embarrassing fate of all Netflix originals left for subscribers to find it on their For You pages so long as the algorithms align. It's ironic to say this regarding a movie about corrupt cops, but this is more proof there's no justice in the world. In a proper world, the RIP would get a theatrical release and in a proper month like March or May or August because it's got the right star power to make you go, sure, why not? And to deliver the appropriate excitement and intrigue to justify the price. That's what movies used to be. They weren't all event releases. They were spontaneous decisions you made because you had an afternoon to kill or a date night you failed to plan ahead of time. The RIP is the best kind of spontaneous decision, a movie where you get the vibe from the poster but still come out smiling because you saw something you didn't anticipate. It's just like Affleck and Damon wrestling over illicit cash in a manner so heated they light the screen on fire. They knock over some candles. To be clear, I don't think the RIP is the oldest school crowd pleaser that would put butts in seats en masse. It's a gritty heist thriller about immoral cops grappling with $20 million and dirty money. Audiences now may not have the appetite for temperamental cops, wondering if they can strike it rich when real cops stand like mannequins. Also, we live with Gestapo ICE agents parting into immigrant households. The RIP is drenched in so much atmospheric and a little darkness that this phrase might say it feels oppressive. I said before, it's great that Scott Adkins isn't the thing and doesn't do any martial arts. But have you seen him throw hands before? One 368 degrees rear roundhouse kick would have been fine, but for moviegoers whose personalities aren't shaped by their Funko Pop collections, the RIP is a welcome, maybe even necessary reminder of the mid-range pictures that kept Hollywood steady and made going to the movies fun. It's bitter to accept that streaming is where these movies now live and die. And woefully all at once. I'm sure the rest of 2026 will deliver better pictures. It's only January and a Netflix release means I'm doomed to memory hole the reboot by Q2. Netflix sure will. But these days, I'm embracing anything that feels dirty and heavy and real. I'm embracing movies made with expertise honed from years of trying. Not made through efficiency. The RIP isn't going to change the world. It's just making it bearable to live in it. I would have even paid for the pleasure. January has long been a B-movie buffet for enthusiasts exhausted by prestige awards bait. A month when Gerard Butler and Jason Statham are suddenly commanding wide releases and often #1 mini-hits. But as the former's apocalyptic sequel Greenland 2, Migration lingers in the top 5 and the latter's action Roma Shelter prepares to premiere, we find the two more prominent stars, Oscar winners Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, resigned to the small screen instead. In a non-Netflix world, a film like The RIP, a flashy, action-heavy, led by top household names, should be available this weekend on the biggest high-format screens across the country. But then, in that same world, at this particular time, it's doubtful that a film like this would even get made. Granted, a budget that's reportedly close to $100 million. Highly unusual for a rated non-nip. The streamer was in fact so keen to get it made that it has briefly agreed to change its pay structure, allowing Affleck and Damon to bring across the profit-sharing artists' equity rule by which each member of the cast and crew gets a bonus if the film performs well. So, as with many films at this weird moment, it's a take what you can get a situation. And while it would have been preferable to see a film like this, which looks and feels like it was made in 2002 on the big screen, the landscape has dictated that the small will have to do. It's made by Joe Carnahan, a writer-director who broke out in that same year with crime thriller Narc, a film that was saved from direct ignominy by Tom Cruise, who boarded as exec producer. Since then, Carnahan has continued to attract other Hollywood action junkies such as Liam Neeson, The Grey and the A-Team, Gerard Butler, Cop Shop, Mel Gibson, Boss Level, and Affleck, whom he first worked with on 2006's rather annoying Capers Machinaces. I'd argue that Carnahan has only made one true great film in The Grey, a grim, grueling, and surprisingly poignant survival thriller about men at the end of the world facing the end of their lives. But he's proven himself to be a mostly solid genre hand. The system hasn't found a place for him in the last few years. Hands up if you've seen a Kerry Washington Dead Shadow Force or a Zachary Levi disaster flick, not with How to Hope, but The RIP, a project he developed with TV writer Michael McCraw, is a comfortable fit. The kind of film he would have been making back in his heyday. As with Affleck's last Netflix action vehicle, 2019 Triple Frontier, it's a sturdy, straightforward throwback to the theatrical movies of yesteryear. And as music, with that film, I'd also concerns a fight over a considerable bounty. A film called The RIP led by cops might cause gruesome flashbacks to 2013. Jeff Bridges' Ryan Reynolds' paranormal police flop. Music, but here, A rip means something thankfully rather different and more of the real physical world. Inspired by alleged true events, it refers to a stashed amount here. Tipped off to a group of Miami officers led by Damon and Affleck JD. They descend upon a seemingly normal suburban house and led by an excitable money-sniffing dog, find more than $20 million hidden in the attic. The team, which also includes Oscar-tipped Tina Taylor and Oscar nominees Steven Yeun and Catalina Sandino Moreno, must then safely transport it, but who can be trusted with a reply key of this? Q. Plenty of talk about jacking or robbing the rip, which no actor is quite able to normalize, and as talented as Damon and Affleck might be, some of their more puffed chest theatrics also ring a little false at this stage of their careers. But it's otherwise something of a treat to watch them take on roles that would usually be sleepwalked by Butler and Statham. A sprinkling of truffle oil on a greasy roadside burger. There's their obvious long-time chemistry, but they're also a serious dramatic actors who are able to bring some humanity to underwritten tragic backstories. Dead a kid versus dead girlfriend, etc. There's a little else for the other actors to really chew on. Although, as the younger woman living in the house, Sasha K has a real striking presence. Arising a clammy fear at what's to come, helping crank up the tension. Carnahan, working with a budget he hasn't been this close to 4 years, is a brash cocksure and entirely unsubtle director raised in a Simpson Brookhammer cinema, and while Ida might not look quite as expensive as Ida actually is, one imagines the Damon Affleck paydays were considerable. The film has a forceful swagger to it. The mystery when over unfolded isn't as entailing and Agatha Christie adjacent as Carnahan would have you believe, although I did get a kick out of seeing a flashback-heavy sub-paro explanation delivered in the back of a truck. After that, it's wall-to-wall action, and while it's competently staged, it's a shame the female characters are sidelined, despite the three possessing enough tenacity to easily play the boys at their own game. The RIP is ultimately a game for the boys, though, and taken as a piece of boisterous macho pulp. It's a propulsive enough for Bearzina watch, a movie to be enjoyed on Friday night and forgotten all about by Saturday morning. The RIP is a new direct-to-streaming Netflix movie which sometimes means crap writing, plastic acting, and the general feeling of being a consumable throwaway product. Occasionally, however, Netflix delivers an honest-to-goodness movie. The Miami PD's tactical narcotics team, TNT, ICE reeling after their captain is murdered. The feds have rolled in and all but accused them of being dirty cop killers. And it looks like the department ICE are going to try to sweep the murder under the rug. Nothing is going right, but the team still has a job to do. And Thea just got a tip on a stash house potentially containing drug cartel money. They just need to go check it out and perform a routine search of Thea House, and then they can finally take a breather. But when they get to Thea House, they find way more than Thea planned for, and things quickly get out of hand. Before they know it, no one is sure who to trust, and the team has to navigate their way through a maze of temptation, betrayal, paranoia, and murder. Can they come out the other end with their honor intact? Or will Thea find out that some of them are not the clean cops they claim to be? The rip is a tense, suspenseful, twisty crime drama. The pacing is good, and the movie builds the tension from the beginning through to the end. It has a bit of an old school feel. Maybe a little bit like a Den of Thieves. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck lead a good cast. Both actors are very good, and their chemistry is predictably solid. The rest of the characters are also reasonably well developed for this kind of film. Music, and the performances are likewise solid, with Steven Yeun also standing out. There's nothing revolutionary about the movie, but it's a well executed, good-looking Brilla Hollywood thriller that would have been a decent theater movie just a few years ago in the age before everything just jumped to streaming. There's a lot of atmosphere, decent dialogue, twists and turns, and a satisfying conclusion. Overall, if you're interested in a suspenseful crime thriller with a bit of action, a couple of plot twists, and a payoff at the end, The Rip is probably a good choice. It's radar for language and violence. The RIP is a piece of slick, propulsive entertainment that is highly aware of the conventions of Crimea thrillers and takes the needed efforts to offer few surprises, even if it makes the claim to be loosely based on a true story. Music. The iconography of drug busts, gonorrhea, dirty cops, and dangerous stashes of fat cash is nothing new for fans of grungy B-movies. The RIP isn't so self-aggrandizing that it makes bold statements about the infrastructure of the genre, but it reveals itself to be a much smarter feat of setup, UPS and payoffs than the straightforward premise may have seemed. January has become a month where studios tend to dump Crimea flicks that play like mediocre versions of Training Day or Miami Vice. But The Rip has a flair for the theatrical twisty sensibilities of 90s neo-noir films like The Usual Suspects or LA Confidential. The RIP is set in the aftermath of the murder of Miami police officer Jack Evil's, Lena Esco, which prompts an investigation into the team she regularly operated with Lieutenant Dane Mars, Matt Damon, Detective Sergeant J.D. Byrne, Ben Affleck, Micro, A. Stephen Yun, Lo Salazar, Catalano Sandina Moreno, and Detective Numa Baptiste, Tiana Taylor, maybe under investigation by J.D.'s brother, Scott Atkins, an FBI agent, but they score only of the biggest busts of their career when they raid a stash hour loaded with the millions in cash. Considering that both of and J.D. have expressed their frustrations with the economic stability of their line of work. Music. The notion of taking the profits for themselves is a seductive one. However, they weren't the only players interested in the secret trove. The D-Agent Mata NX Kyle Chandler has his own team making raids, and the home's owner Dija Sashike may have a connection to deadly drug traffickers. Carnahan is unquestionably one of the most distinct crime cinema aficionados of the 21st century, as both his defenders and critics could admit that his films could never be mistaken for anyone else's. While the last 2 decades would have seen Carnahan working in a high-stakes action-heavy feats of fast spectacle like Cop Shop and The A-Team, The Rip is the most grounded and streamlined entry in his filmography since his breakthrough film Narc. Carnahan has an ear for how cops talk, how investigations are staged, and the types of details that could only be picked up by those who have spent years on the force. If the RIP has anything to say about the current state of law enforcement, it's that it's all a matter of facts and figures. The initial cautious seizure is the resort of financially oppressed cops in need of a win, and the site itself could be claimed as a contested victory for the DIA, the FBI, or the local police department. The film has a more complicated mystery than the question of who is dirty, as it would be a better question to ask which lane of authority the characters are most loyal to. It makes for an engaging story because the central group of characters must speak to each other in coded terms, making implications that none of them would be brave enough to speak aloud. Carnahan finds a way to make the dialogue both realistic and memorable. While no one has a Tarantino-esque monologue, there's enough personality to go around, giving each actor a chance to shine. Damon and Affleck, who also produced the film under their production company, Artists Equity, have been such frequent screen partners that it's impressive they were able to continue drawing the best out of each other nearly 3 decades after their breakthrough with Good Will Hunting. The RIP is savvy enough to realize that it's more fun if the two are cast in roles that may have seemed more naturally suited for one another. Is the gruff, colorful team leader who speaks with a defiant sense of authority, whereas JD is burdened by family issues and is holding back personal issues that he's not yet comfortable talking about. The evolution of the characters' relationship makes for an effective bait and switch because Damon and Affleck bring an unpredictability to their roles, making it easy to question what both of their motivations might be. Although simply seeing Damon and Affleck bounce off on another is the primary selling point for the RIP, The overqualified supporting cast is able to bring individuality to roles that may not have been as fleshed out on the page. Yun is a standout because he's playing a character conscious of the fact that he's been underestimated, a quality that the actor may share when sharing the screen with the stars like Damon and Affleck. Atkins, one of the most talented stunt artists in the world, proves that he's improving as an actor and gets a few feel a bit underwritten scenes but both actresses are charismatic enough that the sections focused in on their characters are never a bore. However, the film scene stealer may be Chandler. While he's best known as the sensitive, thoughtful star of prestige dramas like Friday Night Lights and A Bloodline, Chandler is more than willing to chew the scenery with a delightfully hammer performance as a scowling FBI agent. The RIP might tip its hand a bit too early based on how many open threads are introduced within its opening 15 minutes, but a majority of the film is set within a singular location, which only escalates the stakes. Carnahan is a skilled enough visual artist that has able to maximize the possibilities for set pieces within a remote neighborhood and mysterious housing project. As the profanity-laden disputes are often as exciting as the fisticuffs, when the film does transition into a more traditional action thriller, Carnahan flexes his filmmaking muscles with the chase scenes that would put a majority of Netflix's more expensive genre flicks to shame. The RIP isn't as much a throwback as it is a fulfilling entry in a canon of easily digestible serpentine crime cinema films, which would see a few new additions each year if the industry were in a healthier place. Although it's a bit unfortunate that it feels like a novelty, the RIP is one of the better examples of what the subgenre can be. Proven commodities and long-term friends, creative partners Matt Damon and Ben Affleck reunite once more for this high-profile Netflix exclusive that finds the pair teaming up with an unpredictable filmmaker Joe Carnahan, a throwback hell-like police thriller that takes place mostly within the confines of a Colombian drug stash house as Matt Damon's Lieutenant Dane Dunmars and Ben Affleck's Sergeant Jaden sweat their way through a sticky situation that involved over $20 million of dirty cash. The RIP stretches the talents of not only as Carnahan and his loaded cast stick to a formula that provides easy entertainment but little in the way of memorability, based very loosely on true events that have occurred within the Miami Police Department's tactical narcotics team. The RIP is a stereotypical Netflix original that is based around quick wins and a focus to keep viewers off their phones as they relax on their couch. Which is a shame as the budget and the talent involved in this three-way thriller could have provided us with something special, akin to some of Carnahan's previous unforgettably works like The A-Team Cop Shop and Smoke and Aces, and far below his crowning achievement Snark in the Grey. The RIP moves along at a nice pace and has a gritty feel with a back and forward and between Damon and Affleck. Highlight of the film is the supporting work from and the likes of Steven Yeun, one badly after another breakout star in it, Taylor and Kyle Chandler, but you also can't escape the feeling that this Training a Daylight affair should have been a little more substantial. Previously collaborating on the likes of classic 9's drama Good Will Hunting, a underrated Ridley Scott flop, The Last Duel, and the highly entertaining Air. Damon, music, and Affleck have set themselves a high bar for theater on-screen pairings, with the RIP noted coming close to their more notably partnerings, but at the same time, it's not hard to see why they would have been attracted to this financially appealing project that exists for easy wins and a quick-fire feature film dopamine hits, with enough twists and turns and intriguing moral conundrums to keep us invested. The RIP is a more than a tolerable streaming release that will find its fair share of supporters. Only just hopes the next time Affleck and Damon choose to partner up again, they decide to do so for a much more layered and high-reaching project. The film The RIP, starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, follows a group of detectives in Miami navigating a high-stakes criminal investigation. Damon and Affleck portray cop partners Lieutenant Dane Dunmars, referred to as L, Joe and Detective Sergeant J.D. Perna respectively. After receiving a suspicious tip, Thea arrive at a house where they find in a gloomy attic $20 million stolen by Thea cartel. Eventually, tensions rise as Thea team counts the money because Thea originally expected to find drugs, but more importantly also because of Thea's recent murder of their captain, Jackie. Mistrust grew as characters were suspicious of each other's motives since a large sum would be incredibly tempting to hide for themselves or breach the power dynamic within the team. Throughout the film, I didn't know who Ia was supposed to be rooting for, which truly kept me on the edge of my seat. The device of cinematic storytelling in the RIP is particularly effective because this tension is driven less by plot twists and instead by character dynamics. Some of the film's most compelling moments occur during quieter scenes. For instance, when the detectives counted the money together, or when LT and J exchange guarded conversations in private spaces. The suspense originates from exchanged glances, music hesitations, or uncomfortable silence. The temptation posed by such a massive sum of money creates a subtle yet a constant pressure that the film allows it to spread among the characters rather than explode immediately. By grounding the narrative in these uneasy interactions, the film makes the stakes feel personal and engaging for viewers. Aside from the movie's illustrative storytelling, it pays strong attention to craft, particularly in its use of foul lighting and editing to reinforce the emotional tension. For instance, music the cinematography consistently favors the dark color palettes and confined interior spaces, which is especially noticeable during scenes set in the attic, interrogation rooms, and in cars. While the detectives are having mostly surface-level conversations in these scenes, the lighting reveals the true thoughts and feelings of the characters. The very first scenes in the attic include shadows that dominate the frame with characters often lit from a single source, making their faces partially obscured, and the space feels claustrophobic. This use of lighting not only creates an eerie atmosphere, but also visually reflects the uncertainty, mistrust, and immoral confinement that begin to form among the detectives. Similar lighting choices appear later during private conversations and planning moments where characters are framed in dim and closer spaces, reinforcing the idea that motives are hidden and trust is unstable. This is why one of my favorite elements to analyze in film is lighting. The audience begins to feel the same tension and uneasiness as the characters do. The editing also mirrors this visual restraint. For instance, during scenes where the detectives gather to examine or count the money, cuts are slow and intentional, thus allowing silence, glances, and pauses to carry the tension rather than rapid movement or dialogue. The film frequently lingers on moments just before decisions are made, extending shots longer than expected and forcing the audience to sit with the character's hesitation. By avoiding flashy transitions or aggressive pacing, especially in the build-up to major confrontations, the editing emphasizes psychological tension over the traditional surprise factor. These choices heighten the emotional stakes by making viewers feel the pressure and moral weight experienced by other characters rather than simply observing the action unfold. Overall, The Rip succeeds as a focused genre piece that understands its own limitations as a traditional Netflix thriller, but also carries significant strength and emotional weight. For viewers interested in character-driven and tension and impactful storytelling with some attitude, the film offers a rich, compelling experience. As a Netflix original, the RIP represents the platform's ability to deliver polished and accessible genre films that focus more on atmosphere and thematic direction than unnecessary excess. It stands as a solid addition to the modern thriller landscape, offering an experience built around mood, style, and entertainment value. There aren't many great movies I've watched at home that I wouldn't have enjoyed even more in the theater. Or disappointing films. There is at least some satisfaction in knowing you avoided the trouble of buying a ticket, traveling to the theater, and spending the evening there. But when a movie is genuinely entertaining, whether it's new or old, it usually feels like it deserves the big screen treatment, with better sound and a more immersive experience. However, there is a certain type of genre film that feels perfectly suited for streaming, and Netflix's The RIP is one of those movies. These kinds of films are built primarily around a feeling. They don't necessarily use a genre to tell a story. Instead, they use the story as a way to capture the essence of a familiar genre experience. Every element works toward creating the sensation of watching a specific type of movie. The appeal isn't always about becoming deeply invested in the plot, forming a strong connection with the characters, or exploring complex themes. Instead, it's about settling into the atmosphere, enjoying the ride, and letting the movie carry you along for a couple of hours. Although inspired by real events, writer-director Joe Carnahan's The RIP is essentially a stylish take on the classic police thriller, and it delivers an enjoyable experience. It may not be as clever as it occasionally tries to be, or as intense as it could have been, but thanks to a strong cast, a gritty atmosphere, and a sense of playful absurdity, it delivers exactly what many viewers want from a streaming thriller, a fun and engaging watch. The film's central premise is introduced in an unusual way. It begins with the murder of Jack Evils, played by Lena Esco, a Miami police captain who is killed shortly after receiving a mysterious phone call involving someone clearly terrified of being exposed by dangerous individuals. Her death leaves Lieutenant Dane Dumars, played by Matt Damon, in charge of the department's Special Narcotics Unit. While Dane is determined to find Jackie's killer, he quickly realizes he is facing a complicated situation. Jackie had many enemies within the drug world, but there is also a larger problem within the police department itself. After a violent crime unit was dismantled due to corruption allegations, internal affairs and the FBI are closely monitoring Jackie's former team. One wrong decision could bring even more scrutiny and potentially destroy the entire unit. Still, Dane is given a rare opportunity to make a move. He receives an anonymous text message revealing the location of a cartel stash house and decides to investigate the address with his team outside official channels. Joining him are Detective Mike, played by Stephen Yeun, Detective Numa Baptiste, played by Tana Taylor, Detective Lo Salazar, played by Catalina Sandino Moreno, and Detective Sergeant J.D. Byrne, played by Ben Affleck. Byrne is Dane's closest friend and someone whose complicated relationship with Jackie was one of the department's worst-kept secrets. Dane's actions become increasingly suspicious, and things only become stranger when they arrive at the seemingly ordinary suburban home. The house, occupied only by a young woman named Desi, played by Sasha Cale, hides a shocking discovery: nearly $20 million in cash concealed inside the attic walls. A discovery like that is essentially a ticking time bomb. Whether it belongs to the cartel or to the group of corrupt officers rumored to be stealing money from criminal stash houses, someone will eventually come looking for it. But Dane's growing suspicion and his unwillingness to follow standard procedure begin creating tension within his own team. Suddenly, nobody knows who they can trust. The setup is compelling, but the RIP does not unfold exactly the way audiences might expect. The film gives viewers a great deal of information before the characters even reach the stash house, much more than is necessary to establish the situation. Because of this, Dane's intentions are never truly a mystery. Yet Carnahan still tries to maintain a sense of uncertainty. That creates a strange effect. The movie sometimes feels detached from the seriousness of its own thriller elements, but that is also part of its charm. It feels like the film is deliberately playing the role of a tense, twist-filled crime thriller. It knows it is not reinventing the genre, but the more committed it is to the imitation, the more enjoyable the experience becomes. This approach works especially well because of the chemistry between Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. The movie is heavily marketed around their decades-long friendship and creative partnership, and the RIP smartly uses that history by giving their characters a similarly complicated bond. Despite attempts to add emotional depth, much of what makes their performances effective comes from the audience's existing connection to the two actors. The strongest emotional moments often come not from the script itself, but from their expressions and the weight of their shared screen presence. Affleck's look of disappointment when JD feels betrayed by Dane, or Damon's wounded reaction when accused of wanting to take the money for himself, carries much of the film's emotional impact. Carnahan understands this and uses their dynamic whenever possible. In fact, the cast as a whole deserves much of the credit for the film's entertainment value. The RIP features a group of talented and charismatic performers who bring energy, personality, and depth to roles that might have felt thinner on the page. Their presence elevates the material and helps transform the film into an enjoyable, character-driven crime thriller. Beyond Yun, Taylor, Moreno, and Kay, the cast also includes Kyle Chandler as a Shaggy D agent, while action star Scott Adkins appears as JD's FBI agent brother. The film rarely allows a dull moment, as the performances and direction keep the energy alive even in scenes that might have felt ordinary in the hands of a less capable team. It's easy to watch RIP and focus on what it could have become. If the screenplay had fully matched the ambition behind its ideas and avoided the moments where it feels disconnected, the film had the potential to become a truly outstanding thriller. However, RIP remains an enjoyable experience when viewed on its own terms. It delivers enough action, tension, and character-driven moments to make it a solid choice for a relaxed movie night. Directed and written by Joe Carnahan, with a story also developed by Carnahan, the film is produced by Matt Damon and stars Matt Damon in the lead role. The cinematography is handled by Miguel Aber, editing by Kevin Hale, and the music score is composed by Clinton Shorter. The production company behind the film is Artists Equity, with Netflix serving as the distributor. RIP was released on January 16, 2026. The film has a runtime of 113 minutes and what was produced in the United States in the English language. With a reported budget of $100 million, the movie aims to deliver a high-scale action thriller experience.